Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here today at 120 Maryland. Thank you to all of the guests and to the members of the press who are going to join us in hearing a really exciting announcement. I would like to acknowledge that we are on Treaty 1 territory, home of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dene, Dakota people, and the homeland of the Red River Métis. My name is Janet Forbes, and I'm the Executive Director here at Inclusion Winnipeg. We're honored to have the Minister here to announce an exciting partnership between the Department and Inclusion Winnipeg. So I'd like to begin by asking the media to hold your questions until the end, once all the guests have been able to make their comments. So now it is my privilege to welcome the Honourable Michelle Squires, Minister of Families, Department of Families with the Government of Manitoba. Okay, got that there. So thank you for being here to make this announcement. We're really excited to hear it. So
thank you. Well, thank you, Janet, for that warm welcome, and thank you so much for having us here today at your facility. And most importantly, thank you so much for all the work that you and everyone else in the community, and particularly everyone else on our task force who worked so hard to deliver that report to myself and to community. With those wonderful recommendations, which is, as a result, we're here today. So thank you also for the land acknowledgement. I too just want to echo that land acknowledgement and acknowledge that we're here on Treaty 1 territory and the homeland of the Métis Nation. Je tiens à profiter de l'occasion pour reconnaître que nous sommes sur le territoire du traité numéro 1 et sur la terre ancestrale de people Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, Dene, and de la Nation Métis. So I'm very pleased to be here with two prominent disability advocates and experts, if I may. Janet Forbes, who you've just met, the Executive Director of Inclusion Winnipeg, and Dale Kendall, the former Executive Director of Community Living Manitoba. Mr. Kendall also chaired the Vulnerable Persons Task Force for us, which was appointed in September of 2020 to review services for adults with an intellectual disability in Manitoba. Last December, my department publicly released the task force's final report entitled Pathways to Dignity, Rights, Safeguards, Planning, and Decision Making. The department also released a 2-year action plan to advance the recommendations submitted by this task force. The report is impressive and thorough. It speaks to a number of issues and identifies several practical recommendations that our government is committed to implementing. One of the key messages that I took from the report was the need for government to empower community. There is a lot of experience and knowledge in our disability sector, but community agencies need assistance from government to help build capacity. C'est pourquoi je suis fière d'annoncer aujourd'hui 2 initiatives qui aideront des organismes à donner aux adultes ayant des déficits intellectuels les moyens de vivre dans les collectivités une vie enrichissante sous le signe de l'inclusion. That's why today I am proud to make 2 funding announcements that will support organizations to empower adults with intellectual disabilities to live inclusive and meaningful lives in community. The first initiative is a $100,000 grant to Inclusion Winnipeg to provide training on person-centered planning to direct service workers and community service workers across Manitoba. Person-centered planning is a way of offering services that focuses on the goals, dreams, and wishes of supported individuals. Inclusion Winnipeg will also work to enhance training capacity within the province to ensure that this important training continues to be delivered now and well into the future. The second initiative is a $675,000 grant that will be provided to an organization selected through an expression of interest process. Through this project, we are looking to achieve 2 goals. First one is to develop peer support networks for families and enhance existing networks. And the second is to promote the use and successful recruitment of community-based assisted decision makers to reduce the reliance on the public guardian and trustee, who is usually the substitute decision maker of last resort. A 2019 report by Community Living Manitoba and the Public Interest Law Centre found that part of the reason for the overuse of substitute decision making is the lack of viable alternatives. The task force report spoke at length about the importance of empowering adults with intellectual disabilities to make their own decisions. To achieve this goal, we are supporting the sector to develop community-based networks that will provide information, advice, and support when requested by an individual. This important project will help reduce the reliance on substitute decision making with the right support networks and assistance from community networks. Any interested organization is invited to submit their application by February 28th. I want to conclude by thanking those in the disability services sector, especially those workers on the front lines, for their dedication and their hard work and their commitment to making the lives better of some of the most vulnerable people in our province. During this difficult time, I know many have gone above and beyond to ensure individuals continue to receive the services that they needed. It is this kind of dedication that makes me certain that empowering our community agencies is the right thing to do. And now it is my pleasure to invite Dale Kendall to the podium to say a few remarks. Actually, that won't stay there. I don't want that to fall on you. Okay, Dale, the podium is yours.
Great, thanks, Michelle. Good day. I'm here, it's Dale Kendall, and I'm here in the capacity of, I guess now really past chair of the Vulnerable Persons Act Task Force and the report Pathways to Dignity, Rights, Safeguards, Planning, and Decision Making. As the Minister had stated, she received the report in May, it was publicly released in December, and a 2-year implementation plan followed. Today's announcements, which are terrific and exciting, and thank you, add energy and needed resources for the successful accomplishment of the goals and recommendations of the Pathway to Dignity report. The announcement of $675,000 to enable the increase of community capacity, it's going to spark many initiatives to become established. It will empower community groups to lead in their areas of passion and create the needed changes in policies and practices affecting the lives of 7,500 persons, adults, living with intellectual disabilities in Manitoba. The areas that the Minister talked about, peer support for families, the capacity for support networks, the development of assisted decision-making, and the reducing the reliance on the public guardian as a substitute decision-maker. To accomplish these particular goals, there are 4 things that the community is going to have to do. And that will be cooperation, show leadership, exercise planning, and collaborating amongst all of the community partners in government for the successful implementation. The second announcement of the awarded grant to Inclusion Winnipeg is to accelerate training and person-centered planning based on best practices in the field and a desire to separate the use of the Support Intensity Scale, SIS, which is a funding measurement tool, to the practice of individual planning that focuses on the needs, goals, interests, and wishes of individuals. It's a significant change in the practice, and it'll require, again, cooperation, leadership, planning, and collaboration amongst community partners to establish that. And I would say that why it's significant is that there's a workforce of over 5,000 people that will be directly affected by this. Many community service workers through all the regions in the province, and all the families that are connected to that process. So it is a very significant move. The task force reported and made recommendations in 16 areas of concern, and today's announcement of about the report and the recommendations shows to the community that that report is being taken seriously, and it recognized the role of community groups, of what they can play and will play in implementation. So congratulations, Minister Squires, and your departmental staff for the recent efforts, and I look forward to being with you for further announcements whenever we get a chance to do that.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
I can't tell you how pleased Inclusion Winnipeg is to be trusted to deliver the training that is going to be possible with this very significant investment. As Dale said, this is going to be a change, and I looked at that as well too, as this is really transformation that's in the works. We know and we believe that all people can lead good, inclusive lives. It's not something that their disability should create any barrier, but it is up to us to look for the supports that they need to have and to ensure they're in place at the right time and in the right way so that they are able to express their wishes, their preferences, how they want their life to look like, how family can be included in the decision-making for them, to support that and to work along with the agencies that will be creating some of the peer groups that will help, because families have told us that they learn some of their best practices from other families. So that's a really key piece of this as well too. We believe in our community as well too. And we know that within community, there are a lot of resources that sometimes people are afraid to even ask to be able to use. And we have found that throughout some of our other work that not only are there really, there's a generosity in our community as well too, and a generosity of providing opportunities for people. So I think that we look at this as almost a community development piece as well too, because for someone to have their dreams and wishes recognized, it's going to take all of us to work towards that end. I just want to make note of and to thank Dale. Dale was the driver of the Vulnerable Persons Act, and that was more than 30 years ago now when that work started. So it was only fitting that he be at the head as well of in the transformation of the Vulnerable Persons Act, the changes that are coming. I think that the spirit was there. It was clear that the Vulnerable Persons Act was something that changed the way people were viewed. And I think that this is just a really great time to now say, okay, this is the journey forward. And the Pathway to Dignity is a perfect name for the report because it is a journey and this is the way forward. COVID and all of the chaotic times that we have just gone through has taught us a lot. I wouldn't want us to have to go through that again, but it did give us opportunity to reflect and to really pay attention to what life was like for people. And we know that some of the things that have the most detrimental impact on people, loneliness and isolation, we experience that ourselves. We all experience that to some degree, but there are some people that that's just part of their life. So all of this will lead to people living those better lives and that open to opportunities and our community that welcomes and includes them. So thank you, Minister Squires, and thank you, Dale, and the committee. This is just fabulous work, and we're so honored to be a part of it. So
Thank you.
okay, so I think we can open it up for questions now.
I wonder if you can explain a bit more about how the peer support groups will work. I'm not sure who's best poised to answer this, but I wonder if you can provide some examples of how that's meant to replace reliance on the guardianship.
I can start
Okay,
and then
sure.
you guys can supplement what I don't finish. That's a great question. And in reading through the task force's report, which is quite a conclusive document, and I think there was a lot of consultation done with a lot of community members and advocates and people with lived experience to develop the recommendations and this path forward. And when we look at some of the gaps in community, one of the anecdotes that was cited in this report was a vulnerable person not being able to get the services that they need in certain sectors, whether it be the legal profession or the banking industry or the medical profession, going there and meeting up with a professional who may not be able to offer or saying that they're not sure that they can offer them the service and wondering where is your substitute decision maker, and not having a full understanding that that person is empowered to make decisions on their own. And so we really need to bring a lot of people in community, and not just those that are in direct support to people living with disabilities, but the whole greater society as a whole, that when we're working with people with disabilities, when we're living with people with disabilities, we need to accept and understand and empower them. And this will also go a long way to developing some of that cultural shift in ensuring that everybody knows that when you're dealing with a person with disabilities, they have capabilities and they have the opportunity to be empowered. And so perhaps instead of having a legally appointed decision maker helping them make some of those decisions, whether it be in the banking sector or in any other of those day-to-day encounters that we all experience making decisions, that this person might actually have a community behind them. It might be a friend, it might be a neighbor, it might be a support worker, it might be somebody from their church or somebody from their community who is there to just guide them with some of those decisions. But that is a very sound practice. So that's what we're trying to get at. And I'm not sure, maybe Dale can flesh that out a little bit for you.
One of the significant things that we experienced in the task force when we had our focus groups with families and individual submissions from families is that the sense of isolation, that the family thought that they were alone in making a decision for their son or daughter for the future. And yet the contrast of that was we had presentations from groups like the Family Advocacy Network and Continuity Care and Inclusion Winnipeg, who were telling us, they're trying to connect families to families, that the advice that one family gives to another family about the process, how to do transition from school to adult life, many families feel that they don't have a choice because they don't know. They don't know that there's options. And so they unfortunately opt for the easiest decision possible, which is a substitute decision maker, often to the public trustee, because somebody told them that's the easiest way to do it. And they forget about all the other options, which is how their community, how friends, how family, how other people can assist their son or daughter in living a rich life. And we're told that there's quite a number of people and there's 2,000 people that have substitute decision makers in the province, that many of them, it wasn't a last resort. It was a convenient resource and a convenient resort, to get something done. And we're hoping that this process is going to help fully unwind some of those situations. Another quick contrast, and I'll just stop and maybe give Janet here a shot, is we were told that there's a significant difference between rural practice and Winnipeg practice in terms of the ability of the community to know a person. There's less problems with banks, not exclusively, but less in rural Manitoba when the bank manager knows the family, that they say, John needs some money. Well, we're not going to question that. We're not going to force a substitute decision maker document in front of us. We're just going to go ahead and do it because it's reasonable and it's right. In Winnipeg, where it's much more formal and you don't know the person as well, that's when the documents and the restrictions start to come up. And so those are just a couple of things, but we're hoping that there's many, many different areas. So we think that, groups, I mentioned the FAN and the Family Advocacy Network and Continuity Care, they're in touch with a large, large number of families, and they can really assist in this process. I hope that answers your question. Janet, do you want to?
I would echo those comments, and I think that one of the things that we have heard from families over the years is their level of fear, that when an important decision is needed to be made, if they're not available or if they don't know the best approach to take, they will default to, the substitute decision making. But I have been with families also who have talked about and have selected a family friend, another family who has an older child who they've gone through this process. So that peer-to-peer support should be very unique. It should be nothing that is a cookie cutter kind of approach, but simply is what works for this particular person and this family. And again, families do get a lot of their strength from other families, and those families can also provide information to the system.
And with these two funding announcements, is it one-time funding, or are there plans to renew it or extend it in future years?
There's so many things on the table right now. This is the start of the journey, for sure.
Minister, I wonder if you can answer, the pandemic has amplified challenges for people with disabilities, vulnerable Manitobans, and many of whom found more difficulties accessing existing services over the course of the past 2 years. What is the government doing to make sure that these services stay strong for vulnerable people?
Well, that's a great question, and that's why we've made some significant investments. At the start of the pandemic, we gave a direct support of $200 per individual experiencing disabilities to help them just get some more money in their pocket. And that is why we're moving forward with a lot of, the reopening of day services. That's something that's very important. Heard from a lot of community members that they want to get day services back up and running as quickly as possible in a safe manner. And so getting those services fully back up to the capacity that they were at a few years ago, and hoping to take this opportunity to modernize and make those services even better is something that our government is committed to. Working through the task force recommendations of the Vulnerable Person Task Force and implementing some of these recommendations so that people living with disabilities they have more opportunities here in the province of Manitoba. So those are just a few of the measures that we're doing. We're also working with the sector, done some initiatives to stabilize the sector, and certainly want to extend heartfelt gratitude to everyone who continues to show up for work during the last 2 years of these very challenging times, and continuing to serve their clients and look after individuals. And to that end, we did have some pandemic staffing support program, as well as a direct wage top up for those individuals who are working in that sector. More needs to be done to stabilize the sector and then to have it flourish. And so stay tuned. We've got some exciting work around the corner on ways that we're going to help rebuild the sector so that it is strong and vibrant for now and well into the future. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, we're going to do a group photo now.
Okay.